Welcome to How to Run for Office and Get Away with It. Today, we're staking your claim in the digital Wild West. Before you even print a yard sign, you need to own your name. From avoiding social media shenanigans to why you can't show up to the internet in digital sweatpants, we're covering the Come At Me Bro strategy. Plus, a quick plug for Be Political strategy sessions and a look at why your fireside chats don't need to be long to be lethal. Let's get into it. Welcome to How to Run for Office and Get Away with It. I'm Scott.
And I'm B.
And we are in our frozen studio here under all the snow and ice as we were just talking about.
Yeah, we're in it for a while.
We're in it to win it.
You know that episode of I Love Lucy when they climb the Alps?
No, and I don't.
They decide they're going to go mountain climbing, and then they go into a cabin, but there's an avalanche and they're stuck in the cabin.
I don't remember that episode, no.
Oh. Well, that's what it feels a lot like. It feels like that. We've been 2 weeks stuck in here.
Your life is like an episode of I Love Lucy every day.
Every day.
There's always something relatable in that show for you, isn't there?
It is the very best television show that was ever created in all time. It is. We have a room in our house dedicated to I Love Lucy memorabilia. I'm a huge I Love Lucy fan. I'm a huge Lucille Ball fan. She and Desi Arnaz were geniuses, but that's a topic for another podcast and another day because I can go on about that forever. So we are talking about.
So what are we talking about today?
We're talking about social media.
Social media. And the title of this episode is
Come At Me, Bro.
Come At Me, Bro.
Which I've been walking around saying like drunk uncle for like a week. I love those sketches. And I just think of Bobby Moynihan saying, "Come at me, bro."
Very funny.
But yeah, we're talking about now we're not going to be talking a lot about how to manage that social media and the everyday workings of it.
But it's really the getting started with it and what considerations do you need to make when you're setting it up?
Yeah, we're looking at how you get everything set up and ready to go and set so that whenever you're ready to use that, it's optimized in every way to seeking the audience it needs to be seeking. But that starts with the moment you create the accounts. So we're going to be talking about that today, which is pretty important. And then, we're going to be coming back later for filling in that content and what content needs to go where for your campaign. We're going to be talking about that when we're talking about messaging, not far down the road. But we've been doing this for, this is our 8th episode.
I think so.
It's our 8th episode, and we still haven't even gotten to the part where we're actually out there campaigning. There's
a lot of discussions about things that need to be done before you file, definitely before you start getting out meeting and greeting people, and that's what we're talking about. This is another thing that is in the preparation phase.
A lot of campaigns don't know you have to do a lot of this stuff, and they file, and then they're doing it. One of the recipes for success I have is you start running for office the day after the last election, and it should be at least 2 years before that next election, if you can do that, if that's possible. But a lot of that can be spent on that time reflecting and looking at what office is best for you and learning about that and getting familiar with the offices. So, there's a lot of stuff that you ideally want to have done and ready and set so that whenever you file, you're ready to go.
And like I always say, running for office can be overwhelming, especially when you don't know where to begin. So Be Political helps people just like you run for political office with the confidence of having a seasoned campaign manager. With Be Political, you'll find the professional advice you've been looking for, along with guidance and tools you can't find anywhere else. We'll help you stay organized and guide you in making important decisions about your campaign, from learning how to secure that big donor to choosing your campaign color scheme. Be Political is here for you. It's hard to know where to begin when you want to run. Start here. Be Political can show you the way. For all your campaign needs, go to bepoliticalllc.com. And now back to the show.
All right, so we're talking about social media.
So where do we even begin when we consider our social media plan?
So when we're looking at our digital footprint, it's the reason that I really named the episode what it is. It's not just because Bobby Moynihan is funny and adorable. But when you're looking at that, the first big advantage that you have in your name ID, branding of your campaign, and your digital presence is being able to have a consistent handle in all of your social media. So let's say you're in Wisconsin, right?
Okay.
And you're running for county commissioner in Wisconsin. I can't remember if they have county commissioners there. I think they do. Um, so you're looking for the right handle. Shout out to Wisconsin, by the way. Cheeseheads. So anyway, they do have really good beer in Wisconsin. So the um first thing that you're looking at is branding that can migrate with you.
Right.
For instance, you want it to be able to grow with you as a person. So if you're in Wisconsin, what might be a popular thing is your last name. Maybe it's Brutowski, uh, for WI, right? And then you have Brutowski for WI as your handle for all of your social media needs.
I mean, the point is it should be something unique,
It
right?
should be something short. It should be something that maintains your name ID, something that is consistent and people are going to recognize and they're going to recognize with you. So in that instance where you have a long name and you're dealing with handles that you want to maintain short because you've got a lot of character limitations in your social media, you might want to shorten that to your first name. It might be Jane for WI in order to abbreviate that a little bit more. If that's what you need in order to keep that handle a little shorter and maintain your branding consistency and name ID. So,
So something we haven't talked about on here is branding and graphic design that's consistent across all of your platforms, your signage, as well as your social media. But choosing your campaign slogan or what's going to be on your signage, does that have anything to do with choosing the handle that you use?
absolutely. So your two main goals when running for office are to get people to remember you,
Right.
people to vote for you.
Right.
So the reason you want them to remember your name is because when they go to vote for you, they need to know it when they vote for you, right? So you're trying to make sure that people remember your name to vote for you. So when you're creating that handle, you want to make sure that it is somehow bringing it back to this is a person that I remember and I have a fond feeling about. So you want to have something that's short, sweet, to the point, and matches the branding and naming that you're using within your campaign. The best thing that you can do is just make that handle available everywhere. It should be when you're doing your printed materials, when you're doing anything that you print at all, there should be a place that has either a QR link. Well, it should have your QR link and your handle. And if you have one that matches all of your social media platforms, then you only have to put it on there once, and then you have icons for your social media platforms. So you're saving valuable real estate on your graphic designs when you're doing your printing and things for your
But
social media.
the important part of that is that it's consistent through all the platforms.
Correct. So if you can get something that doesn't exist in any platform, that's the sweet spot. For instance, I mean, look at us as an example. When for our podcast, our handle is How to Run Pod. All one word, How to Run Pod. And it's clear, it's to the point, it sums up who we are. You know from that name, that's our title it lets you know right there that it is a podcast. You know everything that you need to know about that. Now, shortened, how to run down the street or how to run for office. That gives you the two options. People click on us
Right,
and
so if
like,
you-
I'm not running a marathon.
If you're here for jogging lessons,
This isn't the
this
place.
is it.
You want to try to have that be as consistent as possible. It's easier for people to find you. It's it's better for your name ID. It creates consistent and visible branding, and it helps people find you again.
And that includes your website, which may be
Hopefully is the same.
maybe one of the hardest to come up with something original.
Yeah, that one can be a little tricky finding a domain name that matches or is very close to your handle, but it's not too bad, especially when you're throwing in that 4 and then the state's initials. So unless you have a name that is exceptionally common, uh, it's it's not. It's a little easier than. But you want to jump on. This is why we're talking about that now. While you're not starting your social media run yet, while you're not posting content, you do want to reserve all of these handles because people be doing the shenanigans. Unscrupulous people will get those handles, and pretend to be you
Right.
and make you look bad. I mean, I'm not saying it happens to everyone, but it does happen because some people are the worst. I mean, people steal yard signs and they draw pictures on people's, pictures and do all kinds of stuff.
Reserve that name, whether or not your plan is to use them, because there's a possibility if you don't reserve them, somebody else will grab it and it will look like you because it's the same as your others, right?
And then they can send out our information, the antithesis of your campaign and make it a parody account of some sort. So you want to avoid that by even if you just park it and you're not planning on using it, or you might use it and you have no content yet. Park it, save it, and we're going to come back to it once we have our campaign branding and messaging established. So you get that. If you can, you have a handle that matches your website domain.
Right.
And one of the first things you want to be able to do with that domain is also create an email address using that domain. And again, this is the name of the game. They are seeing that repeated over and over and over. They're seeing your last name for Wisconsin or Arizona or Washington State, WA, whatever. They are seeing that over and over and over again.
Right.
And so that sticks with them. And it doesn't matter what platform or whether they're emailing you or they're going to your website, they're typing in the same thing. And so try to make that, if you can, a name that's going to be on the ballot. And then, try to make it consistent 100%.
Gotcha.
Once you do that, you want to go to Google and register your name, because a lot of people don't think to do this. This is another place for shenanigans where they take your branding and make it an @Gmail, and they can do parody and shenanigans that way. But also, that's how you get your YouTube channel. So
It's through Google.
Google owns YouTube.
Right.
So that's how you can do a YouTube with a different account, obviously. But again, you get that with your branding @Gmail, then you're a step ahead with the YouTube. It already has that
Right.
starting out. And we were talking about this in another episode. I don't remember where, but the wall of separation between the community and you as a candidate, right? Um, you don't want to hand out your personal information at all.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be using your personal email account for your campaign, right?
No, the only email that you want to be using for the campaign is the campaign email that is with your domain. 100%. If you can do that, that's you want campaign email. And there's several reasons for that. And one of those is if somebody wants a disclosure of emails related to the campaign. If you've sent none from your personal account, then you don't have to send emails from your personal account for people to come through to make sure that you didn't have any campaign emails in it. So anyway, these are the kind you want to go ahead and get a Google phone number with a personal Google account. You can actually get a free voice number. It goes right through your cell phone. It's an independent number. People can text it and call it. It will tell you before you answer who it is. Like you pick it up, it shows that it's a Google call coming through that line. And then like the person has to say their name, almost like a collect call. So whenever you pick up the phone, they'll say their name. Now, if it's somebody who you've been waiting to call that line, you can take the call. But if it's not somebody, you can let it ring or you hear that and you're like, no, I don't have time for that. It'll go to voicemail.
So Google will set you up with a phone number that you can both text to. So it's just like us having
It's
another
just like,
cell phone number.
right. And so what you can do with that is you can create a more personal connection while maintaining that boundary and separation from the general public. Right? So if you're talking to someone and they really want your attention and they really want your time and you don't want them to feel blown off, but you just don't have, I mean, that's a good time to say, here, I want to hear more about this. Here's my cell phone number. And then, it is sort of, I mean, it's just the campaign cell phone number
It's
and
like
how
an
it
app.
happens.
Yeah.
So you can write down that cell phone number, right? And then there's still that wall of separation. There's a little bit of, and it's not going to be, a lot of times you have a cell phone plan. Everybody's cell phone is one number off from one another. So there's no way of your people guessing like your family's phone numbers in your household, that sort of thing. It's just, see, I grew up with this. So, I mean, I was threatened at giving out our phone number. We had an unlisted number. It only went to certain people. Um, and I mean, understandable. We already got
Oh yeah.
calls
Well,
at the
today,
time.
today even more so.
Um, I mean, at least now people text and don't call.
Right.
Back then, our phone would have been ringing off the hook nonstop and at all hours.
Sure.
So that was a closely guarded, and that will happen to somebody running for office, giving out their cell phone number
Right.
here and there. So those are options that you have available to you that reserve them. It's the same way with all of the different options in social media. Reserve them. It doesn't mean you have to use them all, but you are kind of protecting yourself by making sure and making. Now, if there's ones that you're really probably not going to use and it's the only one that doesn't have the handle available that you're looking for whatever reason, right? Don't make it hinge on that you don't use that handle. Use a little common sense in it, but again, reserve those spaces, park those spaces where you can to make sure that you are preserving your online identity and strengthening it,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah. I've heard you say quite often that you should have a professional appearance online. What do you mean by that?
So, a lot of what we talk about on here is how to do a lot of this campaign self stuff yourself, right?
Right.
And we're helping people who are going to be doing a lot of DIY, but there's certain things you don't want to look DIY. You don't want to be DIY because you need them to function properly and you need them to look appropriate. So when we're talking about having things look professional, it may mean that you have a photographer, that a local photographer, somebody who does a good professional job, you spend some time with. They take a few pictures that are specific to your website and able to be used for your branding on your social media because you'll definitely have as your profile in some way your campaign logo, but you're also going to need pictures of you interacting with the public and portraits and other content that's real pictures to populate that social media and to populate your website. So, when you're putting those things together, you want to make sure that your pages, your feeds, your site, they all have a things that belong where they're supposed to be. You're not using photos that aren't the right resolution. So you've got a picture and suddenly it's pixelated because you blew it up real big and it's cutting part of the words off because it's not fit to the viewable safe zone that's available. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But now you've got the only thing that people see about you is that you can't properly crop a picture and you don't have anybody on your staff who knows how to either. And that's not the like persona you want to put out there, right?
Right.
Um, you wouldn't show up to a fundraiser in sweatpants and an ill-fitted tank top. So don't show up to the internet without having quality images that fit and branding that's made for.
So this is one of those things that you might want to consider having in your budget to hire a professional,
Yes.
at least a professional photographer to get some portrait type pictures of you
Correct.
that are high quality.
Correct. And you wanna try to, if you can, get some high quality action shots of you doing things. But one of the best things you can do is kind of decide in advance what kind of picture you want there when you're planning out your website. But if you can, you don't wanna have to make your website yourself. Well, there's a lot of tools out there to build a website on your own. But if you can get somebody who's actually gonna build a website that looks professional, that shows you, uh, as an organized professional, you didn't just show up. You're here to do things the right way. And it matters because this is part of transparency, right?
Right.
If you can't properly communicate in the forums that most people are communicating in, well, that's going to be somebody who's hard to get information from on a regular basis. They're still using a rotary phone,
Right.
that's a person you've got to call during business hours and then mail them a letter and wait, 2 weeks to get a response because they don't know how to use their email.
Right.
That's the image that gives.
Right.
Nobody wants that.
So you want the website to be professional looking, and that's best done with a professional website designer.
It is. If you can get somebody who professionally does websites, that's gonna be ideal, but you don't have to break the bank.
Right.
Uh, for whatever reason, this is an area where the cost of it is wide swinging, and you want somebody who can, show you work that they've done in the past. They can give you an example of what that looks like, and somebody who is more interested in providing the website that you're telling them that you want rather than exploring their creative needs and making it all about them, which surprisingly is a problem.
But before you even get into your website design, you need to do your branding,
Right.
your color scheme, your graphics that are going to be consistent
Which
throughout
is
your
also something you want to do with a professional.
Right.
But these are all things that you want to get a professional to do. And uh, to do the stuff that we're talking about, you don't need a professional yet. And that's what's important here. Like what we're doing, anybody can do this part. Parking, reserving, this handled domains, getting this stuff. And so, once you get that stuff set up, then you can go find somebody who knows how to build your website. And it doesn't have to be some elaborate website. This is what people really get stuck on. As a matter of fact, you can usually do your website in 2 to 3 pages, keeping everything contained to a single page. There's a lot of advantage to that. Um, but y- you know, after that, you're leaving to go. You're clicking on something to donate, and you might be going to
Sure, we're going to have a future episode all about this.
right. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to cost a lot. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but it does need to look sharp and professional. And that's the big part of the first step to that is making sure that all of this stuff is uniform and name. Then the next step is making sure that it's uniform in appearance. And then the third step is utilizing each of them to the strengths of what they do for you and putting out your message.
That each of them, let's talk about the different platforms that you should set yourself up for, and maybe just very quickly how they should be utilized.
So I think we all know the most ubiquitous.
Sure.
Sure. So that's going to be Facebook. I
Right.
have a campaign page. So you have your campaign page again, branding, all of that. We're gonna put that up eventually. We're gonna do that. But you want to make sure you have Facebook page. when you're doing that, you want to set it so that it's connected to your personal page. Makes it to for creating it, it gives you control over it.
Okay.
Um, I don't recommend giving that control to many people. If you do, then if you give it to somebody else, then have a completely separate
But your campaign page, you might have multiple different people who can
access it.
access it as an admin.
Right. So,
Who can post on your behalf.
right. And you want to make sure that you're selecting the appropriate settings for that. That's what I was trying to say there, and it wasn't coming out right. So when you have other admins on there, you can give them different permissions. Make sure none of them has the admin level to be able to delete the page or whatever other than like you.
Right.
But again, if you're hiring people, I mean, that's just me being extra cautious. I do that as campaign manager, is make sure that nobody can delete it except for me and the candidate. Um, so the reason, we make sure that is one, we don't want accidents. Two, we don't want somebody disgruntled, all kinds of stuff. Uh, but just, you create that page. So then there's the second aspect to Facebook, which is the personality aspect of it. Now, you want to keep all of your campaign communication coming strictly from your campaign page, but you also have your personal page, which it probably has a following already. You have people who know you in the community who have looked you up on Facebook, become your friends. They're looking at your posts and things like that. So you've already got a built-in following. So all you've really got to do is go in there and change the settings for your profile to digital creator. And then you can maintain privacy by switching the privacy of each individual post. It's likely going to be controlled by you, the candidate, as much as possible,
Right.
or a very trusted person, because that's your personal Facebook account, even if it is being used as a digital creator sort of account,
Okay.
right? So, but
What is a digital creator account?
it's a new thing that Meta has started in social media where you have the opportunity to be like a personality using your main Facebook profile page as a personality account. It's sort of a hybrid. By setting it to digital creator allows you to track posts, track analytics, go in and see things that you can't see from a regular Facebook page without setting it to digital creator. So it gives you the opportunity to track it the way you do your Facebook page.
Okay.
Uh, I will say this,
What do you mean track it the way you do your Facebook page?
your page rather than your personal account. The campaign page will have the settings, the analytics, Facebook ads and things in the back office.
Your personal page set so that you have analytics.
Exactly.
Okay.
Being able to track posts, boost posts, you can boost posts from there. You can do all kinds of things that you can't do with just the average Facebook account. And it doesn't cost anything to be a digital creator. All of them cost to have one of those blue check marks. I think that's unchecked capitalism, but that's just me. um, I'm I'm too much of a cheapskate to be spending money on check marks. So um I'm not going to recommend purchasing things like that. That's probably going to be the next question. I don't recommend buying things like that for anything less than a congressional race. Maybe a state senate race. Maybe if you're running in California or New York, where you have a very dense population, things like that, where you're trying to reach a very large audience. I can see where you might have a reason, like, if you're running for city council in Los Angeles, you could probably spring for a check mark here and there on social media, right? But, if you're running for mayor in Paw Paw, West Virginia, you probably don't need to spring for a check mark on your social media.
Okay.
Um, but beyond that, you're using your personal social media. It's very important if you are using it for that you have personal awareness, I suppose. You go back and make sure that there's nothing there that's embarrassing or that potentially portrays you in a light that does not reflect who you are or that misrepresents actions that were actually taking place. I mean, y'all know the stuff that I'm talking about. We all went to bonfires, right? Like, you don't need people to see you with a red Solo cup dancing around a bonfire in the summer of '99. Like, you now that those pictures don't really exist, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, thank God the summer of '99 does not get
Well, I mean, that applies to all platforms, right?
correct, but a lot of those platforms are being created. This is one that's not. So, basically, scrub it, lock all of the posts in there that you don't want anybody to remember exists. If, maybe honestly, just go through and lock all of the posts where you talked in third person. That was a dark time. Do you remember when we was like it was like your name and then you were
It was
supposed
always
to
in third
it
person.
was supposed to be in third and there were people that were like ridiculous about it. Like if you spoke in first person, they were like, "Don't you mean that like don't you mean Bethany was?" And it's like, well, first of all, no, because I don't call myself Bethany. That's weird. But it was a dark time, the third person time. So, lock those. Those are embarrassing for everybody, and just start there, really.
Okay.
But
So for Facebook, you're gonna incorporate your personal page kind of into your campaign.
have less than 500 followers on there. I mean, and you're on the fence about that, leave it alone and just do your page. But if you have, you know, 1,200 or more followers on your Facebook page, then roll with that, right? You've
Right.
got a captive audience right there. That's 1,200 people you can ask to make donations to your campaign.
Okay.
That's 1,200 people. Some of them probably live in your neighborhood and you can go, "Hey, can you vote for me?" That's 1,200 potential volunteers. So, stick with that audience if you can. And if you're on the fence about it, then don't. Just stick with the campaign page. And so there's options. There's benefits to both. There you go. Um Next, that's the most ubiquitous. Everybody knows Facebook. Um, so then 2 is short of your short and snappy thing. So you've got I still call it Twitter. I will not call it X. I think it's stupid, but that's just me. I'm stuck in my ways. Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky. Um, Twitter is a cesspool now. I don't think I'm saying any hot take here. Twitter is, uh, but again, like Facebook, like it's part of the holy trinity of social media. So, you know, that's something to consider. Park the handle for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Use the handle if that's the place that you're going to reach the people in your area. That you might live in an area where Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, is very popular in that area. And that exists. Depends geographically where you are and what your most used social media
And how do
is.
you know these things? How do you find out
Me
what platforms you should use?
me personally,
No, as a candidate.
so you can actually just look that up. You can go to a search engine and type in, what's the most used social media platform in my state or in this region, and that information is typically on there because there's statistics. People are tracking these things, and that is public information.
Okay.
So you can look it up where it is that you live. You know, what's what's the deal? Is everybody on Instagram here? Are they on the Twitters? Are they using the Blue Sky? So, Twitter, cesspool, but ubiquitous like Facebook. Threads, cesspool, not ubiquitous, but it's part of Meta. It's part of Facebook. And if you're using that, you might as well just use Threads. Um,
During short form videos, mainly.
this is similar in format to Twitter X or Blue Sky, and that you're using short form, snappy, sort of quick phrasing. You might throw a picture in with it, and then there's threads of people just arguing. And then, Twitter's the same way or X is the same way. You're putting in so many characters, short, sweet, to the point, punchy. Hashtags are slowly fading out of style. I like to use them to be humorous, but people are using less of those. I recommend using hashtags more to track your own stuff than you are to try to get attention um, as that starts to fade, as the use of, but hashtags remain. So still use them, but they're starting to become less common.
Correct.
Um, and then Blue Sky. It's heavy on center to liberal and
Okay.
users, uh, which has its advantages and disadvantages.
Sure.
So uh, we work for Democrats and liberals. That's who we typically are talking to. So if that's not you out there, I mean, you can keep listening, but I'm going to give you advice that's going to confuse a lot of people if you're running Republican. I mean, this stuff is not necessarily going to work for you. I'm just going to say it. So with the Blue Sky, you're a center to liberal individual. You're using that. You're going to be talking to your base if they're using that in your area, which by now most places are, unless it's small rural, it hasn't really met or your region. But you're going to be talking to your base when you're there. You're going to be talking to them without a lot of noise coming at you. So that's a big disadvantage, or that's a big advantage, being able to talk directly to your base without having a lot of noise. You can keep it positive without having somebody else turning it negative, turning it into a conflict. A lot of times it's still social media, so it's still happening. It's just less likely to you post it and 30 seconds later you're like bam, bam, bam with just memes and whatever. So you got that, but you're not reaching a lot of non-committed politically people.
Right.
So you're not talking to people you're convincing. This is where you want to camp out in a primary.
You're not changing minds here.
You're not changing minds so much. You're not anymore on social media. You're not changing minds. You're getting them at the beginning, and after that, that's it.
Okay.
You've lost them if you didn't get them at the beginning. They've made up their mind on what they believe, so that you put yourself out there the best way that you can, and if they agree with you, they do, and if they don't.
Okay.
Um, so again, it's three things doing similar things. It's typically different audiences that are present at those, but they all have their advantages, disadvantages.
Okay.
Um, then we move on to more of we've got Instagram.
Okay.
And that one is really great for showing like really what's the word I'm looking for? Uh glossy. It's seeing moments of your campaign in a glossy sort of format. It's if you were getting your an the cover story of Vanity Fair, these are the pictures that would be throughout the article as you can the smaller pictures that are
Okay.
populating throughout. That's the kind of things that you want on Instagram. Something that
Pictures that grab attention.
right, that are manicured. You know,
Okay.
pictures, they have filters applied to them, and they've got a tone, and there's music that's set to it, and they're Snapchats, but or not Snapchats, they're snapshots, they're Polaroids, but they're professional Polaroids, I
Got it.
guess, is sort of what people tend to gravitate towards on social media. But it's also an opportunity to see you in that way, to see you leaning down to shake hands with somebody that's in the crowd in front of you and see you in that capacity, to see you bending down and talking to a kid at a school where you've just been reading. So that's where you want to showcase those sorts of things. Again, that's part of the metaverse. So it's part of Facebook and Threads. Instagram is the image aspect of that. So a lot of times you'll be doing some it'll automatically cross populate each other, which is nice too. So
Sure.
you got your videos, which is the TikToks, Reels, and Snapchat. Each one of them do a slightly different function. Uh, TikToks and Reels tend to be very similar. You got to grab their attention right away. It needs to be snappy, punchy. There needs to be action and fun and energy. Uh, Snapchat is different. Snapchat is sort of like you want Snapchat to give you a feel of going behind the scenes. Like if TikTok and Reels, you're you're talking, you're having a conversation one on one with somebody, and they're looking directly at you. They're talking to you. They're performing for you. Snapchat is picture it, you're walking through the backstage and it's the performer before they're performing. It's more genuine and raw and relatable.
Okay.
So you want to have a little bit of fun with that. Lay off of the face filters, right?
Right. Okay.
Because they do make you look ridiculous, and you do not want to look ridiculous. Your opponent will jump all over it. It will be in every mailer, whatever. But stay off the filters on Snapchat. But that's what you're using those for. Reserve them. Even if you're not going to use them, even if you don't know how to use them, reserve them first. We're going to come back and talk about it, y'all. It's going to be fun, but reserve them. So next up, you've got your more collage-based social media, and that's Lemonade and Pinterest is the typical ones.
Okay.
Um, don't give yourself extra work, man. Like
So really not going to use these
you,
much.
you can. That might work for the type of campaign that you're running. But most of the time, these are aspirational things, which are, I'm not saying you don't do aspirational, but people are using those platforms for art collections and um home decor and
Right.
hairstyles and recipes and hobbies and I've got a whole file folder dedicated to antique radios and so they're not looking at a lot of political content on those particular platforms. That's not to say it can't be used for that. What I'm saying is that you don't have the audience necessarily that you need in those areas. That doesn't mean don't use them. That doesn't mean don't reserve the handle. But this is not your focus. So we have YouTube,
Right.
which again, this is one that we utilize too. We have these reserved as well. But YouTube is, we talked about that earlier. It's part of your Google setup, right? So you've probably already reserved your handle at Gmail, whatever. Um, this is where you want to do like your long form videos and house them because you can upload your online commercials that you're going to be running on Facebook, that sort of stuff onto YouTube. And so then you have a link that you're using for a lot of things rather than having to upload a video, which can be which is a lot of space. It's a lot of time. Um, for people who are less tech savvy, it's easier to just copy the link from the video that you just made and throw it into a post. Now, is that the ideal way to do that? It depends on the post, but you can do a lot with the long form video service of YouTube. And again, as YouTube has evolved, it has sections of it that work very similar to TikTok and Reels. So that's an opportunity there. If you don't have long form videos yet for YouTube, you're still generating some of those videos if you're using those platforms on Reels and TikTok, and you can use that to populate your YouTube as well. So it has the benefit of having both that short form video and the long form video capabilities that other video formats don't have. And that's a great place to be doing things like elaborating on your positions, giving short form versions of your position speeches that
Right.
you have, and really getting a more personal one-on-one feel on that one, the modern day fireside chat. So you've got that one-on-one connection, answering questions directly a lot of times. That one allows you to also be getting feedback. You can go live in there. So you could be using YouTube to connect directly with an audience. But that's one that is great for housing a multitude of things for yourself and then connecting it in other social media regions. So, and then finally, we have LinkedIn.
Okay.
So, a lot of candidates don't think about using LinkedIn as a platform to be on as a political candidate, but it makes a lot of sense because when you're running for office, you're applying for a job. And so you should give voters and donors your resume. You should have a place where they can go and see your resume. And obviously your website's going to have that. But again, we're talking social media. Your LinkedIn is going to be you're giving them your professional resume. You're
Right.
saying this is where I've been officially. This is who I am.
And you also have a lot of business to business contacts there.
Yeah, business to business contacts, and not to put too fine a point on it, but you've got donors that are on there and they're seeing the way that you're communicating and the way that you're discussing things. And you've got local business owners that are on there and they're seeing how you're discussing local commerce and the commerce that is in the district that you're going to represent. So there's a different audience there, but it's an important audience and they're being neglected a little bit in
Sure.
politics. They really are. And surprisingly, LinkedIn not being a place where politics is typically discussed, not it's not fought over. It's not the main people just it's just a quiet place for that,
Right.
right? And so you can be a little bit more aspirational and inspirational with the messaging that you're putting out there. You can be a little bit more on the I want to live in a community that has walkable markets and, a shopping downtown. And then you're putting a link to an economic plan that's worked in Milwaukee that, is coming from white papers that are coming out. So you're providing professional documentation that's saying, this is what I aspire to be. And you get a little bit more room to do that in LinkedIn.
Your audience is
And they're seeing, where your professional priorities are at in that platform. So it's a really invaluable tool that most people are kind of ignoring in that campaign
Yeah.
realm. Um, that one sort of has a what I call a Russian nesting doll situation going on with it. And a lot of the formats for social media are starting to go to this. Snapchat has done this too, Meta's like this. So if you are on LinkedIn, you have your professional page, but then if you own your own business or you're creating a page for something that you do that's related, that's on your resume, you create that page inside of your page and it's a whole thing. So make sure when you're setting this stuff up that you are looking at directions, you're getting direction on some of the step-by-step processes and we'll see if we can't get some do's and don'ts to
sure.
checklist to go along with that and throw it up on the website.
Well, this is a great. There's a lot of social media sites out there. This is a great list of the most important ones for the campaign, I think. Definitely the first ones, and check your local listings if there are others that are very popular in your area. But right now, as of January or February of 2026, these are
The one.
these are really the top platforms to use. Um, and that's a lot different than it was in 1940, wasn't it?
It is, but what
How about that for a segue?
that's a nice segue. So I actually did my honors dissertation on the role of ghostwriters, on the role of presidential speechwriters, and how that evolved with the role of communication in the United States. Which um, some of you were like, "No, that's interesting," and some of you are like, "Oh my god!" And I get that. I get it. Dissertation is much like what is the people say it's like childbirth, but it's not at all. Because I've done that, but, I've also had my appendix out, and it's a lot more like that. It's extremely painful. Absolutely no one around you is like, what's wrong with you?" For like a real long time. You finally, it makes you sick to your stomach to the point that you're just miserable. You finally get it out of you, and then they give it to you and it sits on a shelf and gets dusty and nobody wants to see that. It's like that is that is what I call it. And then at the same time, our daughter just wrote her doctorate, and I'm like, "Can we get it hardbound? I'm gonna read it again." There's like 3 words that fill up 1 page with all of the medical terminology that's in it. There's like 3 lines for 1 word, methyl cycline, or I don't know. I just put a bunch of Latin words together for that, and it sounded real to me. Anyway, I kid, I joke. Um, so one of the interesting things that I found when I was doing this research is, and one of my favorite presidents of all time will always be FDR. Now there's problems there that we could talk about all day long on overstepping authority or pressing the bounds of the executive branch. I don't think that we can feel real precious about that anymore. But anyway, uh, FDR was walking into a climate where Americans didn't trust.
Peace to a climate.
Yikes. Let's try that take again. FDR,
Rolling into a climate.
he was wheeling his way into a climate that's no disrespect. I love you so much, FDR. No, he was coming into a climate where there was a lot of distrust coming from the American people. Rightfully so, rightfully earned. People did not like Hoover. They did not trust Hoover. They had famed homeless encampments after Hoover. If you've ever heard of Hooverville, that was him. So he's coming in after that. And one of the things that he wants to do to build trust is to talk directly to the American people. And at this time, radio had become a common part of people's lives. It's 1932 when he comes into office. He is looking at an America that now gathers around the radio to listen to. Let's see, we've already got my favorite, which is Burns and Allen. Burns and Allen shows on. I think we're coming into Armis Brooks. I think that might be 10 years later. Duffy's Tavern's coming up. That's in the 30s. You've got a lot of radio. People are spending their time just like you do now watching TV. They're on the radio. They're listening to the radio. They're gathering around it. Little Orphan Annie. So he says, "Well, I'll do radio broadcasts. I'll sit in the Oval Office or where have you, and I will address the American people." And that became something that, of course, it's one of the first things that we associated with FDR when it comes to, how he related to the American people. It built a big sense of trust. And it was because it was the first time a president was regularly speaking directly to Americans. And it wasn't because they happened to be in the right place or the right location. They were in their home, and the president was speaking to them. And this was felt so keenly that there's this phenomenon that takes place where, well, a lot of people have, that generation is now passed. So there's not a lot of people you can ask anymore. But you used to ask people how often the president did fireside chats. There were people who truly believed in their heart of hearts that he gave a fireside chat every Saturday.
Right.
And he didn't. The most fireside chats he gave in any one year was 3 in a year. The average span between those chats was about 18 months, I think. No, not 18
Yeah,
months.
that doesn't really matter.
It wasn't 18 months. The longest span between them was 18 months. But he was going like, 5 and 6 months sometimes, if not longer. Towards the end of the war, I think he had two addresses, and he was making them on very specific points. They were all on very specific topics. At first, they were updates on. First, it was the address on the New Deal. He was talking directly to the American people. He was giving an appeal directly to the American people. Hey, this is the New Deal. Chicken in every pot. Every person gets a job. We're going to get some stuff built back up again. Our infrastructure, we have some work to do. Let's put the America to work, right? So then he's giving updates on that. And for people who never they read the newspaper, that's the entirety of their news, and they listen to the news broadcast that's on the radio.
Right.
To have the president talking directly to them where they're hearing his voice and he's making the argument himself, this was completely new and novel.
This is social media as it stood in
This is
1830.
exactly. So being able to have that kind of connection and communication, that for them was a closeness that they'd never experienced to an authority, to somebody of that stature, the average person.
Right.
And so a couple of things happened because of that. One, people became more directly connected with their candidate and their president. And those words started to matter more in how they were being said, the exact wording, the tone. You can say something in print, you can say something and it's written down, but people hearing for themselves the tone in which it's delivered. Oration was, always an important part of American politics. And now
Never before had you been able to reach so many people.
so many people all at once.
Right.
And so this really revolutionized the way that politicians started to speak. And it sort of took the loftiness of speech and started to bring it down to the average level.
I mean, you can also imagine that in that period, if you were to ever hear the president speak, it was in front of a large crowd.
You were far back.
Is probably yelling and being as big as possible so that people could hear him and understand him. And only the people who were there at that location were the ones actually hearing the president speak. A little later on, you got into newsreels where they would show small portions of that speech and before movies and things of that nature. So a wider audience actually got to see and hear the president speak, but it's still in that big hall speech kind of authority. This is much more personal,
Intimate.
much more intimate, being able to speak in a normal voice with normal intonation, with a more emotion behind it. This is something that people had not experienced at all before.
And in my opinion, my argument is that this is the first step of demystifying the presidency.
Right.
Because it brings down a barrier and makes it more relatable. And I really think that we didn't see that was a special skill of that accessibility. That accessibility is something that you can't teach. It's just part of a personality. The accessibility of uh, of FDR was you felt that again with Barack Obama. The way that he didn't talk down to people, he talked out at people. It wasn't about I'm gonna lead you there. It was we're gonna go together. It was the idea that we do this as a community. We do this together. We are united.
And that was the perfect medium for that because it was a personal invitation
Exactly.
to join together.
And that same and you saw that message in John F. Kennedy as well. We're connected. But the difference, there's commonalities there because you have two people who are coming from two prominent families that are very well known, and then you have Barack Obama who's coming out of nowhere for a lot of people. But he's our first social media president.
Right.
And he's the one who made social media. He's the one who figured it out. Like he figured out social media, Jack Kennedy figured out TV, and then he figured out TV. Ronald Reagan did TV better. He perfected TV.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do when you got? He could act with a chimp. He could he could act with Kissinger. Anyway,
Don't call George Bush a chimp.
oh, don't pick on WH. He was a great peepaw. Anyway, I liked him, and I do like Barbara. And you know who else I like? I like Jenna Bush. I do like Jenna Bush.
Okay.
She and I have a lot in common. And as parents, we're very similar. I see her talk on the third hour or whatever it is. She's on with Hoda, I think, or whatever. And I hear her talk about the way that she approaches things. And that once upon a time wouldn't have been uncommon, but in today's world, the idea that I'm somebody who works with Democrats, liberals, that's where I'm usually at. And, you know, she and I have a lot in common, right? She and I have a lot in common. And I think we could take time more to recognize that about each other. And that's going to be my positive note I leave everybody, right? Is that, I always think about that. Jenna Bush and I have a lot in common in a lot of ways.
Even the Bushes are more central than
Listen,
we're used to.
I don't agree with most of his policies, but W is just the most charming, nice person from what I can tell. I mean,
Yeah.
Michelle loves him.
I think that's about all we have time for today.
I think so.
I think we need to wrap it up here with a little preview of our next episode that'll be coming out shortly. And that is going to be entitled,
We should totally stab Caesar.
We Should Totally Stab Caesar.
Lesson in calendars.
We should totally stab Caesar, but first we need to schedule it.
First, we need to schedule it.
But we're going to be talking about campaign calendars and managing your campaign's time and planning out all of the events that are happening, both personally and professionally.
And I might just tell you how
And we'll hopefully,
Julius Caesar has anything to do with it.
and we'll also explain that reference. So for all of us here at Be Political,
Let's get ready to run.